Hello family and welcome back. In today's tutorial I'll be sharing with you how to cut and sew this nice flare dress. It can be worn by expectant women or anyone who likes unique fashion. Kindly subscribe and like this video if you're new here. So guys, I'm making use of this drafting pattern paper to draft the dress. I'll start with the vertical measurement, the top edge being the shoulder line. I'm marking out shoulder line to bust line measurement at 10 inches first. Next is shoulder line to under bust line measurement at 13 inches. And then shoulder line to waistline at 16 inches. So now I'll use a straight ruler to square out lines across those marks. After I'm done with that, I'll go ahead to label the first as bust line, under bust line and then waistline respectively. From there, I'll measure the full length of the dress starting from the shoulder line still. And I'm taking my full length to be 42 inches, which includes 1 inch folding allowance. After measuring, I also square the full length line across that mark as well. Moving forward guys, I now want to draw the dress neckline. I'll use the normal measurement of 3 inches neck depth by 3 inches neck width. Then we'll use now a curved ruler to draw the neckline like I'm doing. Once I'm done with that, I'll measure half the shoulder measurement or shoulder line, that is 7 inches including 0.5 inches stitching allowance. Mark 1 inch down for shoulder slope, which I'll connect to the neckline width like that. Now from shoulder slope, I want to measure the armhole depth at 7.5 inches. The formula I used is on the screen. Apply the same when finding the chest line or the armhole depth. And then we'll draw a line indicating chest line. Having done that, I'm going to carry forward half the shoulder measurement to chest line, which was 7 inches. Mark, then join it to the shoulder slope width with the vertical line as I'm doing. Now it's time to draw the armhole curve. I'll do that by first marking quarter of bust circumference on chest line. That's the bust measurement divided by 4. We'll find armhole depth midpoint where I'll put a mark. So from that exact point, I'll measure 0.5 inches inwards. Then I'll use now a French curve ruler to draw armhole curve by joining these 3 marks with a smooth curve. And this can be done freehand guys. Next, I'll measure quarter of waist circumference on the waistline, which is 8 inches. I'm adding 1 inch stitching allowance on both the chest line and the waistline. I'm going to now use the marks on the chest line and the waistline to draw the bodice part outline. From there, I'll measure 18 inches on the full length line, and with that, I'll now connect it to the waistline with another line. And after I'm done with that guys, I'm going to mark midpoint of all measurements from the armhole midpoint to the bottom. You'll see what I'll use that for. Then we'll use a ruler to draw a line passing through these marks. Here is what I have, a armhole princess dart that extends to the full length, which I'll use for splash and spread. So guys, the top part of the dress is armhole fitting. That means the flare starts from the under bust line, or you can decide to go up a little bit by 1 or even 2 inches. That depends on what you want. One can also decide to splash and spread from the chest line. So now I've measured 1.5 inches up from the under bust line. That's the point the flare will start. Then I'm drawing a line at that mark. After I'm done, I'll go ahead to cut along the outline. And I'm done cutting along the outline. Up to this point, I haven't drawn the sweater neckline. And to do that, I'll use a curve ruler to draw a new neckline from the armhole midpoint down to the bust line. This is necessary since I'll use a different piece of fabric for the yoke part, and the line is where I'll cut it from. Again, I'll measure 2.5 inches up and then curve the round bottom area like I'm showing you with the curve ruler. We'll cut it from there. And like I said guys, I'll splash along the midpoint line and also cut along the sweetheart neckline for the yoke. With that, I have 3 different pieces. Remember, I also told you guys I'll spread from the highlighted line downwards. The upper part remains fixed. I've placed my pattern paper on a different plain paper. First, I'll tape down the upper part. And from there, I'll now spread using 2.5 inches. Then I'll go ahead to secure with tapes the rest of the pattern. After doing that, I'll extend an A line to the highlighted line like I'm showing you guys with a ruler. I had to add another paper at the bottom since the other one wasn't enough. And I'll go ahead to cut again along the new outline. So now we'll use the pattern paper to trace out on the fabrics. I'll use the same for the back pieces as well, though with a few changes. Here is the front fabric, which is unfolded into 2 with the wrong side. I'm going to have to align the folded edges with the pattern paper and then secure them with pins all round. This is to enable easy cutting. And after pinning down, I'll trace out the fabric from the pattern paper by cutting all round. So guys, here is now the front part of the dress after cutting out. I'm going to now cut the back part of the dress using this other fabric, which is unfolded also with the wrong side. And like I said earlier, I'll make use of the same front pattern papers for the back, though with some few changes. Instead of aligning the edges, I'm going to measure about 2 inches zipper allowance from the folded edge, that is the center back. After measuring and securing with pins, I'll just cut along the outline too, and then we'll also divide it into 2 from the folded part. Here are the 2 back pieces. I'll put a zipper here at the center back. And I'm using a different fabric for the yoke, an African print fabric, and I'm going to have to secure again the fabric and the pattern paper with pins for easy cutting. And thereafter, I'll trace it out. I'll use the same pattern for the back yokes. Again, I'm measuring 2 inches zipper allowance at the center back, then we'll secure with pins first. I'm also making some changes for the back neckline. I'll use 1 inch neck depth and maintain the 3 inches neck width, and that's my new back neckline. I'll then go ahead to trace out by cutting. Next, I'll head over to the sewing machine in order to stitch the yokes to the fabric, and same goes also to the front parts. I'll put the right sides of the fabric together, then we'll stitch with about 0.25 inches all round. After stitching, I'll use a scissor to notch again all round. Guys, I'm done stitching yokes for both the front and the back pieces. This is how they look. I traced out linings for the yoke parts, which I'll use to cover up the ugly side, that is the wrong side, by stitching it also with about 0.25 inches. And I'll do the same also for the back pieces. Here is it after covering up the fabric wrong side using the linings, and as you can see, I've achieved a neat finish on both sides on the back pieces too. Next, I'll align the back pieces right sides together, and with that, I'll now use this zipper to measure the zipper space. I'm marking exactly where the zipper ends, so now I'll make loose stitches up to this mark you're seeing. Then the rest will be normal stitches from the mark to the bottom edge. So guys, I'm done stitching the back pieces. I made loose stitches from the neckline to the mark. I didn't back stitch either. From here, I'll also align the front and the back pieces right sides together in order to join the shoulders. And guys, take note of how I'll be stitching the shoulders. I'm using one of the linings to cover up everything, then I'll stitch. It's an easy way to achieve a neat finish on both sides of the shoulders. After I'm done stitching shoulders, I'm also going to stitch the sides with about 1 inch stitching allowance I added earlier from the armhole down to the bottom edge on both sides. And guys, I'm done joining shoulders and I've also stitched on the side edges, as you can see. Now I'm going to rip out the loose stitches to provide room for the zipper. But first I want to take the total neckline measurement so as to know the length I need for the neckline binding or the bias tape. And what I have is 22 inches. I've made a bias tape for binding the neckline, which is 22 inches long. I'll use it to bind the neckline as I'm doing from this end to the other end. I'm done binding, guys, so now I'll fix the zipper on the space left. Already made 2 sleeves earlier. Kindly check the link in the description how to make them. I'll go ahead now to stitch them on the armhole, then double hem the round bottom with about 1 inch stitching allowance. Guys, here is our final look. I'm done fixing the zip and stitching the sleeves as well. Kindly don't forget to subscribe, also like and leave a comment down below. Let's meet in our next tutorial.